7, 8, 9, 10. One, 11, 12, 13, 14, 1, 2, 3. The Titans.
Hello and welcome to Fresno State Focus on Sports. I'm Al Scott.
And I'm Brian Welch.
We have a great show for you today as we begin the new semester.
All Fresno State football practices are closed to the media this week. You might think that's because of their big loss on Saturday, but it's standard when the team has a bye week. But there's no doubt the Bulldogs are licking their paws after a big loss this past weekend in Las Vegas against number 23 ranked UNLV. The Dogs struggled to move the ball offensively. The first 4 possessions of the game, the Dogs had to punt 3 times. Despite a crazy week, UNLV did not look phased at all under new starting quarterback Haj Malik Williams. Williams completed 13 of 16 passes for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. Williams also ran the ball 12 times for 119 yards and another touchdown. The Rebels defense looked fierce, plus their special teams had a blocked punt. Bulldogs turned the ball over 4 times and they lost to UNLV 59-14.
To dive more into what happened to the Bulldogs on Saturday, here's Ephraim Mata with a special guest to learn more.
Thanks a lot, Al. Joining me today to recap Sunday's blowout loss is 24/7 publisher Jackson Moore. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jackson.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So starting off with Saturday's loss, like I said, do you think we should be worried about their performance?
Yeah, there's some areas where you worry. I think in general, it was kind of a worst case scenario in a lot of ways. The game got out of hand. It got away from them. The score really ballooned in the fourth quarter. It wasn't too close before then, but it looked a lot worse by the end of the game. I think the offensive line is one area where the Bulldogs need to address some things, but defensively, I think you can chalk it up as an off game.
Yeah, so when you talk about that offensive line, right, obviously affects Mikey Keene's play. We've seen throughout the year. He already has 6 interceptions. Last year he had 10. Should the Red Wave panic about that?
That's a little bit of how the O-line can handle the upcoming opponents. So you look at some of the recent games, the last 2 before this one, 0 interceptions for Mikey, but there weren't many defenders coming after him. Against New Mexico State, teams that Fresno State should control the line of scrimmage against, they did. Now they've got to at least bridge the gap a little bit. They can't give up as many pressures as they did that they allowed to the Rebels. The Rebels aren't the greatest pass rushing team in the nation by any means, but there's some other teams on the schedule that can probably replicate what UNLV did, and that would be a concern for Mikey.
No, yeah, I think what you said definitely probably eases the Red Wave a little bit. You know, it's a tough couple games to start. I think we got 7 games left. I'm personally really excited to see how the Red Wave does. Thank you again for joining us. Back to you guys on the set.
Now with the loss to UNLV, what do the Bulldogs do now, Al?
You know, Jackson mentioned the offensive line issues. I think that's something that you have to get squared away. I'm not sure if there necessarily needs to be a change there, but they definitely seem to see a better performance. They've got to be able to protect the quarterback, whether that's Micah Keene or you got backup quarterbacks, Jaden Mandel and Wood, that have seen some playing time intermiss in the game. It's important that they get those guys time so that the quarterbacks can find their receivers and make some plays going forward. What about you?
You know what? For me, it's like you watch that game and you're like, okay, the team had a bad day. It was a 12-30 kick. You can always say that. But for me, this bye week is very important because when Washington State comes to town in 2 weeks, that's going to be a really important game for the Bulldogs for the trajectory of the season. That'll be very interesting to see what the Bulldogs will do. In the fictional character Ted Lasso,
I relate him to Coach Skipper in the way that Skipper, they lost by 45 points. In the press conference, he's smiling the entire time. You know why? Because he believes in his dogs. He knows that he's got a squad. Same way that Ted Lasso believed in his squad, despite everything that they just saw. And I think that sort of optimism is going to help Fresno State going forward and help them compete with a team like Washington State, who they beat in the LA Bowl a couple years ago.
It's going to be very interesting to see what the Bulldogs will do in 2 weeks, but the Fresno State women's soccer team opened up conference play this weekend at the Bulldogs Soccer Stadium. The Bulldogs lost to Boise State on Thursday night 1-0. The Bulldogs gave up a goal from Broncos forward Carly Cross in the second half. Then on Sunday, the Dogs welcomed in nationally ranked Utah State. The defense was the star of the show for the Dogs. Before the match on Sunday, Utah State outscored their opponents 32-7. The Bulldogs had a 0-0 draw against the Aggies. The Bulldogs go on the road this week to take on Wyoming and Colorado State.
After losing 2 sets to Boise State, the Fresno State women's volleyball team came back and won 3 straight sets in a reverse sweep to secure the 4th win in the season. The first set was close, with the Broncos winning 25-23. The second set was also not kind to the Dogs, ending 25-17 in favor of Boise State. Then in the third set, the Dogs avoided a sweep with a 25-20 win. In the fourth set, Boise State put up a good fight, but the Dogs came back and won 25-20 again, forcing a 5th and final set when the Dogs came through with a 15-10 victory against the Broncos. Opposite hitter Addison Haluska tells us what went well for the Dogs.
I think that we were finally just letting ourselves play as a whole. We were, hitting the floor, playing hard defense. Our offense was great, and I think that we were just keeping ourselves in those long rallies and serving aggressively, keeping the ball on our side. So, yeah, a lot.
The Dogs' next match will be on Thursday on the road in Laramie against Wyoming. Head coach Lisa Rosen says the Dogs need lots of rest to keep their momentum going into their next match.
Right now, Fresno State's women's golf team is competing in the Pat Lesser's Harbottle Invitational. 17 teams, including the Bulldogs, are in Tacoma, Washington for the Invitational. It will be a 2-day event. The last time the Bulldogs participated, they placed 15th. There are some familiar faces on the team competing this year. Amelia Garbaldelli is looking to improve on her performance after leading the Bulldogs by finishing 34th overall last year when she finished 8 over 224. Lanusa Vu is excited to return to the Invitational after finishing 53rd overall last year. Her score is 13 over, and she actually tied teammate Caitlin Lay.
Coming up on your Focus on Sports, we take a look at some former Dogs in the NFL.
Plus, we debate who is better in baseball, Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge.
I got the Bulldog spirit up in my head.
Up in my head. Up in my head. I got that Bulldog spirit up in my head. Up in my head to say. I got that Bulldog spirit deep in my heart. Deep in my heart. Deep in my heart. Got that Bulldog spirit deep in my heart. Deep in my heart to stay. I got that Bulldog spirit down in my toes. Down in my toes. Down in my toes. I got that Bulldog spirit down in my toes. Hey, down in my toes to stay. I got that Bulldog spirit up in my head, deep in my heart, down in my toes. I got that Bulldog spirit all over me to stay. I got that Bulldog spirit
deep in my heart.
Deep in my heart, deep in my heart. I got that Bulldog.
In the NFL this week, Raiders star wide receiver Devontae Adams sat out this week due to a hamstring injury. He is considered week to week. Former Bulldogs quarterback Derek Carr was in Atlanta this week as the Saints took on the Falcons. Carr only threw 1 touchdown yesterday. Unfortunately, it was a pick 6 to the Falcons linebacker Troy Anderson off of a deflection. The Saints quarterback completed 28 of 36 passes on the day for 239 yards. He also led a go-ahead touchdown drive for the Saints in the fourth quarter. It was not enough, however, as Falcons kicker Younghoe Koo kicked a 58-yard field goal to win the game 26-24. New Orleans plays next Monday against the Saints at 5:15 p.m. on primetime. After looking like an MVP candidate through the first 2 weeks, Carr has looked sort of mediocre the last two. Which Derek Carr are we going to see going forward?
You know what, Al? I really liked how Derek Carr performed against the Cowboys. I want to see Derek Carr do that every week of the season this year. And especially, you know what, I mean, it's a big-time game against the Chiefs on Monday night. And you know what? The stars shine bright on Monday night. But also, switching gears to his former teammate, what are the Raiders going to do with Davante Adams, Al?
The Raiders have had a funky start to the season. They kept Davante Adams after rumors all last season of trading him. There's rumors that this hamstring injury is sort of fluky and that the Raiders are sort of considering moving him. Whether it's real injury or not, the Raiders still have to consider if it's in their best interest to trade him going forward. I personally think that they should. They need to get younger. I don't think that the Raiders are necessarily good enough to compete in the postseason and compete for a Super Bowl this season. I think that they've got to cash in on their assets right now. A lot of teams could use a top 5, top 10 wide receiver like Davante that could make them going forward. The Raiders could get a first or second round pick for Adams if they trade him. I don't think that they're going to get that if they wait too long to trade him next year.
It'll be very interesting to see what the Raiders will do in Las Vegas. The 2024 regular season is over in a year where offense is down throughout the league. Two former MVPs are raising the bar to historic levels. The Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge led Major League Baseball in almost every major offensive stat, including 58 home runs, 144 RBI. The former Bulldog also had the first 700-plus slugging percentage season since Barry Bonds in 2004. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Dodgers designated hitter Shohei Ohtani finished the season with a league-leading 134 runs scored. He also completed the first ever 50 home run, 50 stolen base season in MLB history. Both Judge and Ohtani narrowly missed the Triple Crown. While they lead their respective leagues in home runs and RBIs, they lost the battle average titles to Bobby Witt Jr. and Luis Ariz. All right, Al, this has been the question we've been asking about all afternoon. Who is the better player right now, Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge?
I think you know who I'm going to go with. Former Bulldog Aaron Judge. Not only did he have the league's leading OPS at 1.159 this season, something that we have not seen by another player in a very, very long time. He also plays in the field every day. That's something that Shohei does not do, and I think that sort of separates the two of them. They're pretty even in terms of hitting. I would give a slight edge to Judge in that department. What about you, though?
2 words, Shohei Ohtani. Mr. Ohtani is really impressive with hitting the ball well, but also stealing. I mean, that's pretty tough for somebody in the Major League Baseball that's also a pitcher. Hopefully to see him in next season. But having him with the 50-50, I like Shohei Ohtani for the MLB spot.
If you're talking about who's the best player, I don't think you can include him as a pitcher until he starts pitching. He didn't pitch this season, recovering from arm injury. I think that's a question for next season. As of right now, I think Judge has been more impactful towards this team. Obviously, he led the league in WAR. I think that Judge's ability to intimidate pitchers, I mean, not that Ohtani's not, I've got to give a slight edge to Judge in that area. Chased for 60, just barely missed it. Got a lot of walks down the season because teams don't want to face him. Staying with Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants announced this morning that Buster Posey is now the new director of baseball operations. Posey will replace former president of operations Farhan Zaidi, who had been with the organization since 2018 before getting fired. Posey spent 12 seasons with the Giants, winning three World Series titles, and while making 7 All-Star Game appearances, he retired after the end of the 2021 season. Before playing in San Francisco, Posey spent 2 seasons with the Giants' AAA affiliate, the Fresno Grizzlies, back in 2009 and 2010. Postseason for Major League Baseball begins tomorrow, Brian. Who is your pick from the American and National League leagues to make it to the World Series?
You know, I got to go with those Tigers. Those Tigers are really fast right now, especially with the momentum they've gained in September. And also for the NL, you got to go with the Brewers. I mean, that'd be a really cool story to see the Brewers get into the World Series and also get a chance for their play-by-play guy, Bob Uecker, legend himself, a chance to broadcast the World Series. How about you, Al?
You know, you saw the Braves win it all without Ronald Acuna Jr. The Brewers have a chance to win it all with without their star outfielder, Christian Yelich. It'd be neat. That would be a cool story for them, you know, winning their first World Series title. I like your pick from the American League. The Tigers been the hottest team in baseball the last month. Tariq Skubal and that amazing pitching staff for the Tigers would be interesting and hard to stop. For the National League, and my pick to win it all, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going to go with the San Diego Padres, who I think are the healthiest and most complete team in baseball. Rock solid pitching, rock solid bullpen. They've got stars up and down throughout that lineup. I think they've got it all. They've got a complete team to win it. Now it's time for our top dogs of the week. Brian, who's your top dog?
My top dog of the week is Ashton Conley, the goalkeeper for Fresno State's women's soccer team. A lot of great saves in the box yesterday against Utah State. And what about you, Mr. Scott?
I'm going to go with wide receiver Raylan Sharp. On Saturday, not a lot went right for the Dogs. One thing that did go right for them was wide receiver Raylan Sharp. 10 catches, 116 yards. He looked indeed sharp. And as Tim Skipper likes to say,
we have some breaking news, Al.
Oh, we have some breaking news. We have just learned that Pete Rose, legendary baseball player, has passed away. Family is asking for privacy right now. He was the Major League all-time hit king with the Cincinnati Reds. Pete Rose was 83 years old.
But before we go, Al.
Fresno State Athletics is handing out cowboy hats to the first 3,000 students at the next home football game. The Bulldogs will be hosting the Washington State Cougars on Saturday, October 12th at 4 p.m. from Valley Children's Stadium.
Will you be wearing that hat to the game, Al?
Well, I've got to get my yeehaw on. What are you wearing to the game, Brian?
Well, I mean, I wear a lot of Western shirts to class, so I'm going to be wearing my jeans, my cowboy boots, my Western shirt, and of course, you got to rock the hat. You have to rock the hat.
All ready for Boots and Buckles night. And that's for our show today.
We're excited about this new venture for Fresno State Focus. We hope you are too.
We'll be back next Monday to bring you more in your weekly focus on sports. Thank you for joining us.
I mean